Centuries ago, in a small village in feudal Japan, a young girl resided with her stepfather. Her mother had passed away some months ago from a harsh disease, and her true father was killed in a farming accident, leaving her begrudgingly in the hands of her disinterested and cruel stepfather. He made her do all of the chores in the household, the cooking, the washing, and the laundry of the neighbors in return for food. He would also make her do anything else that he couldn't be bothered doing himself. One chore that the girl could not do herself yet was drawing water from the well. This required pulling a heavy bucket full of water to the top and then pouring it into a larger bucket, which was then carried back to the village. On this particular day, when drawing water from the well, something in the pail caught the stepfather's eye. It was a stunning hairpin made of fine metal and emblazoned with precious stones. This must be worth a fortune, he thought to himself, and something inside him stirred. He stared at his stepdaughter with his greedy, evil eyes and said to her, "I'm sending you down to the bottom of the well to see if there are any more jewels." The girl couldn't believe what she was hearing. She was terrified of cold, dark, and confined spaces, and the very thought of going down there completely terrified her. She knew what the alternative was, though, and she didn't dare cross her stepfather. Shaking like a leaf, she climbed into the bucket and held on tight as her stepfather lowered her into the black pit of the well below. Suddenly, the handle on the bucket snapped, and she fell all the way down into the darkness until she was completely out of sight. The stepfather shouted down into the well, but it was not to inquire about her well-being. It was to ask if there were any more treasures down there. This was truly all he cared about. The girl had fortunately survived the fall, and knew that if she didn't tell him she'd found more precious items, he would most likely leave her there to die. She told him there were indeed more treasures, the likes of which he couldn't possibly imagine. He shouted to her that he would send a rope down, and for her to tie the items to it so he could pull them up. "What about me?" she shouted back. "Don't worry," he said. "After you send the treasures up to me, I'll lift you out." She didn't believe him. She told him to lift her out at the same time, but he wouldn't do it. This confirmed her belief that she couldn't trust him. She told him if he wanted the treasure, he would have to come down here and get it himself. This made him furious, and that's exactly what he decided to do. "You wait till I get down there," he screamed. "Then you'll wish you passed up the treasure first." Slowly he edged his way into the well and started to climb down. Then the rope snapped and he began to fall. The little girl watched in horror as she saw him free fall all the way down, face first, into the water below, with a huge splash and a blood-curdling snap as he broke his neck and died. She couldn't believe what had just happened. She looked into his dead eyes as his blood filled the water, half relieved he was dead and half terrified that she was trapped in the bottom of the well. The day slowly turned into night. She tried to climb out, but the wall was too slippery. She tried to scream out, but no one could hear her. Exhausted, she gave up, sat down, and cried. Soon after, she stopped sobbing and looked into her stepfather's eyes. She was furious at him for putting her in this situation. She was glad he was dead. Suddenly, he stared at her and smiled. She was completely petrified as the chilling look on his face tore through her like cold steel. Then he spoke. "You're going to die down here. Then we'll be together again. You'll be joining me soon." "No!" she screamed as she kicked him in the face. Then, when she looked down, he was as dead as he always was, still and completely lifeless. This made her more determined than ever to get out. She looked up. There was no way she could get out tonight. She felt the best thing she could do would be to summon her courage and ride out the night. In the morning, someone would come, and then she would be saved. She had a horrible, sleepless night. It was freezing cold, and out of the darkness came dozens of insects which spent the night crawling all over her face and body. Eventually, the next morning came, and she routinely shouted for help in the hope that someone eventually would hear her cries. And someone did. A man who was passing by heard her calls and looked into the well to investigate. He called down to her. "Are you okay?" he shouted. "I'm fine," she called back. "Please help me. I'm stuck down here." The man immediately got a strong rope and slowly lowered it down to her. She tied it around her waist, and he pulled her to the surface. She couldn't believe she was rescued. She was so happy to see this man who looked so kind. She hugged him and thanked him for saving her. He comforted her and told her that everything would be all right. For the first time in years, she truly felt safe. This feeling, however, was tragically short-lived, as once she realized what was in this man's wagon, a chill ripped through her, and she wished herself to be back in the bottom of the well.